I'd like to kind of start out the community meeting and can I give you kind of a directive of what the organization is doing. Sorry. Yeah, but before I start, I want to kind of reflect a little bit on the past 12 months that have occurred within our country and across the world and the challenges. It's been a bit of a chaotic year, but all great changes are preceded by chaos. And rather than reflecting on the chaos itself, I want to reflect on what chaos invokes, and which is change. To improve is to change. So to be perfect is to have changed often. So change in itself is the path toward perfection. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Change or go extinct. Sorry. Change is scary, but change is necessary. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past and the present are certain to miss the future. So change is the gateway to the future. So here at NANOG, we've been focusing over this past year of ways that we can change and improve our environment to better suit not only our community, but also to better suit our community at large, those people who extend out past NANOG. And as I go through this section of the community meeting, I want to focus on those things that we've been doing as an organization to respond to the change that's happened kind of in the world around us in an effort to better our offerings to our community. So first off, I'll start off by talking about NANOG 83 and what we can expect. So NANOG 83, the dates will be November 1st through the 3rd. We're going to do a delayed start time on Monday to 2 p.m., allowing those people who have families and want to participate in Halloween, which is the day before, time to be able to get to the meeting and to participate. The location will be in Minneapolis. It'll be a hybrid meeting. We'll be offering both virtual and in-person services to our community. It'll be the first time doing it, so it'll be an interesting process. So wish us the best of luck and be patient with us as we go through this transition. The hackathon will be on October 30th through the 31st. The social will be on November 1st. And NANOG will be sure to follow both CDC and state guidelines to assure the safety of our community. So this year, NANOG board selected both education and mentorship committees, and I want to take a few minutes to update you on what's happening within those committees. So in the education committee comprises of Ron Kovac, Paul Ebersons, Hossein Barjin, Reddy Uramindi, Michael Costello, Dave Siegel, and myself. So for current status, the committee has selected 7 potential courses, and they are routing fundamentals, IPv6 and current and future role in networking, domain name services and its role in networking, network automation, fundamentals of finance for the network engineer, finance for technical entrepreneurs, and border gateway protocol. There's a survey that's currently underway that you can give us some feedback on what you think about these courses and suggest maybe some possible other courses that we should be able to take advantage of. So this slide will be available so you can pull down and grab these URLs, or if you got a phone, you can kind of snap the QR code and it'll take you right to that survey. The mentorship committee comprises of Wendy Leedy, Matthew Patek, Ron Grant, Reedy Ormindi, Susan Forney, and also myself. And its current status is the committee has defined the program and the responsibilities for both mentors and mentees. A survey, again, is currently underway to get community feedback on the structure and the program to seek out those who are willing to participate as mentors or who are interested in participating as mentees. So again, here's a link to that survey. So if you get an opportunity, please, if you're interested in being a mentor, you can follow this link. And if you're interested in being a mentee, you can follow this link as well. And if you're on our website, if you look into the meeting pages and you scroll down, you'll see surveys, and you'll be able to also access it via those links. So let's chat a little about the development updates within the organization. Over the past 12 months, NANOG has spent a lot of effort and energy into updating our back-end systems in an effort to provide better services to our community. I know you're all experienced our new registration system that we've set up. And this is an opportunity. We're going to make some updates to it where we're going to be able to offer Apple or Google Pay. There'll be NOG access to our event tools. The board has made the decision to allow NOGs in our North American region to take advantage of some of the software that we've developed. We're not in competition with one another. We're all trying to support each other. So if you have a NOG and you're interested in leveraging some of the tools that we have, such as our event management tools, our virtual tools, we're looking for people who are willing to beta test and see how it works and functions. We're going to be adding a donation form to our website. We're going to be taking Simply Voting and updating it to OR2 for single sign-on. We're going to be making some updates to the, we're going to be creating an appointment tool in an effort to better serve our community and managing their access to events. We're going to be developing a learning management system to connect and leverage the efforts with what we're doing in education. We're going to be creating some sponsorship tools to help better serve the sponsors that help support NANOG. And we'll be adding more updates to the program tool itself. If I can get Google Slides to behave itself. So administrative updates. So Brandy Herrera has left NANOG, and in her place, we now have Elizabeth Drolet. Elizabeth will be serving as our multimedia studio story producer. Elizabeth has a BA in technical journalism from the University of Colorado State. She's a former broadcast journalist in both TV, radio, and print. She's now turned into a media digital content producer. She's a recipient of the Colorado Broadcasters Award of Excellence for Best News Feature. And take a look out for our annual report. You should be seeing that come out shortly. We'll be sending out notifications through the mailing list, through our MailChimp mailing list, and also we'll be putting that out on social media, so look for that soon. So I would now like to turn over to Elizabeth Culley, and she will talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the NANOG program.
So Edward, thank you for having us here today, and I hope everybody can relate to speaking on mute. So we on the program, this research started because we on the program committee had an idea that we are producing less number of talks now post-COVID than we've been putting on pre-COVID. So I started to look into the numbers, and the numbers proved out. I looked at 6 NANOGs, 3 pre-COVID, 76, 77, and 78, and 3 post-COVID, 79, 80, and 81. And what I saw was that on average, on the pre-COVID NANOGs, 76, 77, and 78, we are putting on an average of 29 community talks, and post-COVID, we're putting on 17. And by community talks, I mean talks that are submitted by volunteers in the community. I took out the talks that are kind of program committee generated, meaning the opening, the closing, the hackathon, the community meeting, et cetera. So we're really just looking here at the community talks that are coming in. So this data is looking at the last 6 NANOGs, how those talks broke down. And just so you have an idea of the numbers, I looked at 254 talks over the past 6 NANOGs. It actually came to a total of 274 tickets because some of the talks were kind of canceled and withdrawn and then recreated. So it was 274 tickets. And this is the breakdown of what happened with each of those 274 tickets. So on average, the number proved out to what we have seen in the past, which was we're accepting around 50% of the talks that come in. That's this 136 talks. There are a couple ways of describing, 6 other ways of describing that the talk isn't moving forward, either permanently or not yet. 3 ways of describing the talk isn't moving forward at all, and that's declined, it's withdrawn, or it's canceled. And 3 ways of describing that we're waiting for something more, and that's pending, deferred, or conditional. And the way this breaks out is, so 50% of the talks were accepted, about 42% of the talks were in declined, withdrawn, or canceled, and 8% of the talks were in pending or conditional, meaning just deferred to a later time. So I wanted to take a look at why over time, what is the category that talks that were happening with talks? And just so you have an idea, when we kind of had this idea that we weren't putting on as many talks, it was our presupposition at that time that we weren't accepting as many talks because we were not getting as many talks into the program. And what the data showed is that, in fact, we were receiving as many talks in the program pre as post pandemic, but we didn't actually publish as many talks. And so this answers the question of why is that? And unfortunately, what this showed is that in the pre-pandemic talks, our largest category was in the withdrawn state. And post-pandemic, the largest category of why a talk didn't go forward was because it was in the decline state. And then NANOG 81, the biggest category was in a pending state. So I started to ask the question of why are more talks being declined? And here's a graph showing basically we're only looking at the declined number of talks right now. The biggest reason that talks are being declined is because there were no presentation materials uploaded to the talk. That's about 35% of our declined talks wind up in that state. 29% or 14 talks are declined because they are basically what turns into kind of product marketing material. 18% of talks are talks that basically lacked a compelling storyline. And 10% of talks, we all agreed together that the talk would be better as a lightning talk. So all of these categories are pretty well self-explanatory. Everybody understands when there's no presentation materials uploaded to the talk, that's easy enough. We can't accept a talk like that. And sometimes that turns into decline. Product marketing, everybody understands that. It's the category of that the talk lacked a compelling story that can be the most controversial to people. So I just wanted to address that a little in a very general way. So everybody could have an idea and say you have an idea, and it's a really good idea. You read the Halabi book and you say, I'm going to do a talk on BGP, and it's basically going to be a tutorial. There's a built-in audience for that because BGP is relevant to all of us. And that would be very well considered in the NANOG program committee. And it can just be a straight explaining, here is what BGP is. And that would be a wonderful thing to put on as a tutorial. If you did that, if you had that kind of thought, though, where it's just going to be, here it is, A, B, C, D, with a very less well-known or a brand new kind of technology, it would be hard to find that kind of built-in audience because it's less well-known. It doesn't have the kind of audience. So if that's the case, we would really be looking for the talk to have a very compelling storyline. And by a compelling storyline, what that means is we would want to be asking the question, what was the problem that you were trying to address that caused you to look at this? And hopefully, maybe not hopefully, but that problem would be universal to a lot of different companies. And that problem is what would generate the kind of audience that would be interesting to our community. So you'd be asking the question of the data of that in a talk of, you're answering the question, what was the problem we were trying to address? What were the other technologies or other solutions that we tried to come up with to try to address this, and why did we decide on this as a solution, and how did the implementation go, and what was the outcome of that implementation? And that's really what we're talking about when we are discussing a compelling storyline. And just so you know, we on the program committee want every single talk that comes in to be given every consideration, and we want those talks to be successful. The rest of these categories, there's not much we can do about. If somebody submits an idea and then they don't put any presentation materials with it, we can't help that. And if it really is essentially a product and marketing talk, we can't help that. And if it really is very short and it would be better as a lightning talk, we can't help that. But we can help the talks that lack a compelling storyline, because we can try to encourage the person who submitted that talk into developing a storyline and making it a better candidate for acceptance. So I needed to look at why pre and post COVID, what kind of talks were being declined. And as you can see, starting on the left-hand side here in dark green is that there were no presentation materials uploaded to the talk. And we had many of those pre-COVID. And I actually consider these kind of talks to be kind of a bread and butter of what we do on the program committee, because this is basically somebody has been struck by lightning and has an idea and says, I need to give this talk at NANOG, and they submit a ticket in to us, and we like that. And we, if we can get the materials in, those are great kind of talks that come in. And pre-NANOG, we had many of those talks. And as you can see, post-NANOG, we did not have as many of those talks. Instead, the category that really came up was the category of product pitch. We saw an increase, a huge increase in the number of product pitch kind of talks that were coming in. And also the kind of talk, a little bit of the kind of talk that lack a compelling storyline. And you can kind of see from this data what was going on here. What we saw was that we were receiving the same number of talks post-COVID, but the nature of the talks that we were receiving shifted from those kind of bread and butter and aspirational kind of talks where somebody has an idea and submits a proposal into talks that are more of kind of on the product pitch side, which unfortunately automatically have less consideration by the program committee. We all know that we are an ecosystem, and every person who comes to NANOG is valuable, and we can't live without the kind of manufacturers and people who want to get our products in front of it. The network doesn't operate without that kind of people. They're valued in the community, but the people who attend NANOG, as we know from the from our chat, are opinionated and vocal, and we appreciate that. But product pitch kind of talks aren't going to go over so well with our community. So that is really where we saw a large portion of talks that were being declined post-COVID as opposed to pre-COVID. So this is, again, just looking at these numbers. What I wanted to address was the difference in experienced speakers versus brand new speakers. What we saw pre-COVID versus post-COVID, our brand new speaker numbers stayed about the same. Our experienced speakers fell by a lot, and these are average numbers across. So when you look at that difference in experienced speakers, that's a difference of 14 speakers that were submitting talks per NANOG. It's pretty significant number of experienced speakers. And the way the numbers work out, if we had the same decline in brand new speakers as we had with experienced speakers, we would have seen a huge decline in the volume of talks that were coming in. But I think the way this works with the previous slide shown, in which we had so many more marketing type presentations submitted, that's why this number of brand new speakers became the same. It's just the profile of those speakers shifted a little bit. So finally, I wanted to reiterate. So since the pandemic, we did see a drop. We definitely see a drop in the number of talks that we are putting out and publishing at NANOG. The number of talks that are being considered are the same, but we understand that the profile of talks that we are seeing has changed. We know that less of our experienced speakers are submitting talks, and we have heard from experienced speakers that they are really waiting until we get back in person until they can give talks. Some people just don't want to be on video and don't want to go through the process of getting a talk approved by NANOG for this kind of video. And we really look forward to coming out of NANOG so that we can get back to our normal levels, hopefully, of having our experienced speakers. We did see the same number of new speakers submitting talks, but the profile of those speakers changed. We know that the new speakers are maybe a little bit more in the product marketing variety, and unfortunately, more of those talks are being declined. So this combination of factors explains why there are fewer talks being shown during NANOG. And this is definitely something that we are going to continue to keep an eye on. And we all know that there should be really complete transparency about the way this process works in NANOG. We understand that going through the process of submitting talks at NANOG and having it reviewed and voted on is challenging. It's our job to be as communicative as we possibly can as we work through it. And so the new and experienced speakers who come to NANOG are really valued beyond belief. And they leave us with insights and education that cannot possibly be found anywhere else. And we hope that as we get back to normal in-person NANOGs, those speakers who've been holding off submitting talks until they can be in person start ramping those back up, and we start coming back to the numbers of talks submitted and accepted that we had prior to the pandemic. And we are definitely looking forward to getting back to normal. All right, that's it. I think Ogie's up next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. I must say that you did a great job at sharing insights of what has occurred in the last few NANOGs, where the entire program was delivered in a virtual environment. Ahead of us, we're looking at a hybrid meeting where we will combine the in-person and virtual experiences of attending a NANOG meeting. Moving forward, our commitment is to always conduct our meetings in a hybrid mode. This way our community will benefit to the full extent possible. We will continue with our efforts to pre-record speakers that will not be able to attend in person. We will allow for questions from our audience attending in person and from remote attendees. With our hybrid meeting, we plan to go back to our full 3-day program. We will continue to focus on the quality of a program. This is possible because of the great speakers that take the time to engage and give back to our community. Thank you for doing that. We are excited to support the transition to a hybrid meeting and take every opportunity to make things better. The NANOG program committee has taken steps to proactively reach out to potential speakers on topic of interest to our community. We acknowledge the fact that not everybody on the program committee was comfortable with reaching out. We shared guidance on ways to politely ask without intruding. Everything that NANOG, the program committee, does is for the benefit of our community. Thanks to Elizabeth again, a list of speakers that presented the most over the years was put together. Our first step was to reach out to the top 20. We found that to be a helpful exercise and expect to see results in our next meeting. In the past, a lot of voting and accepting of talks was done at a predetermined time period for every meeting. We have evolved that process into reviewing and accepting talks as soon as they become available. We continue to evolve and mature the process of reviewing and accepting talks to be added to the NANOG program. For those of you that are planning to submit talk ideas, we want to take a moment to remind you to take the time to recognize people that supported you with your content for your presentation. We continue to encourage folks to do that. Most recently, we had a case that we had to follow up on because we felt it was the right thing to do to recognize contribution. In addition, we added disclaimer text to our presentation submission agreement. Basically, for those of you submitting a talk idea, you accept responsibility for obtaining approval for use of any of your content. Your presentation will not infringe upon any right content, and the full text can be found in the submission agreement. And finally, NANOG is not responsible for the content of your presentation. The NANOG Program Committee continues to be committed to building the best program possible for every meeting. All of that is driven by the feedback that we receive from our community. Here is another example of how the NANOG Program Committee continues to evolve. What we did is we created a new role to help offload work from the Program Committee and from the shepherds. And what was happening in the past was a lot of the work to review presentations was done mostly by the Program Committee Secretary. And we found that it was best to distribute that work, and now that's the task is on the content reviewers. They're the ones that make sure that we follow standards for recording and live presentations. In addition, the content reviewer takes the time to approve the final slides to be published on the program and prepares speaker introductions. Finally, an update on how our program committee mentorship program is progressing. Volunteers in the program committee come and go over the years. This is part of our existing process. The intent of this program is to guide new program committee members. And what we did is we match experienced program committee members with new members. And here's some of the results. We encouraged direct contact to allow for open communication. The program helped align with the primary goals for the program committee. We quickly discovered what the mentees had interest in helping with. Found where people can bring the most value. Overall, I must say the program, mentorship program, has been a success, and we plan to continue in the future. Next, we will continue with the poll questions. Thank you.
So before I start into the whole questions, during the process of my presentation, Google decided to eat a few of my slides. So there's a couple things I want to talk about before we head into polls. One, I wanted to discuss briefly some of the development efforts that we've done recently that you're now experiencing as part of some of the changes at NANOG. One is that we've created a new event management system. In the past, our events were kind of separated into certain categories, and they were displayed in different parts of our website. They're now consolidated into one particular section where we manage all of our events, anything from conferences to outreach events to member meetings, et cetera, will all be found there. We're also going to be opening this up to third parties. So, for example, if Aaron wanted to list and host their meetings there, they could as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be opening up these tools to NOGs for them to be able to leverage them as well going forward. You've also now experienced our new event registration system. We've now moved away from CVent, and we are now kind of hosting all of our event management internally. The goal there is to give you a much smoother experience than what you've experienced in the past. And also because it's driven for the needs of our community, it can evolve to help serve our particular needs as well. We're now able to bundle member registration into that, and we're also able to put donations into that. You can also take and register multiple people at the same time. So again, all these things done in an effort to better serve our community. We also, as I mentioned before, I've done updates to the program tool, and we've also done some extensive upgrades to our the NANOG navigation system to make sure that it's easier for you to access and find things. And then the last thing I want to talk about before I jump into polls, and that is our community forum, our discourse community forum is now open for public beta. We kind of encourage your feedback and participation. If you go to community.nanog.org, it will then jump you over back to our NANOG website where you'll be validated through our OAuth 2 server, and then you'll be able to take and kick the tires and play around within the community forum. One thing to bear in mind is that the mailing list is mirrored in the community forum. It is read-only access, but it's great the way it presents, and you're able to search through and find things that are there. Again, this isn't beta. We're looking for community feedback and kind of how we move forward and what we do in terms of providing you with the best tools possible to participate within our NANOG community. That being said, I will move on to polls. So if you want to participate in our polls, you can go to pollev.com/nanog. If you want to text your responses, you can do so at 222-333 once you're joined, or you can download their mobile app at polleverywhere.com/mobile. So that being said, let's jump on to our first poll question. And the first question is, are you planning to attend in person for NANOG 83 in Minneapolis? And what we'll do is we'll take a couple of minutes. This is a live polling system. As people add kind of responses to the polls, it'll update in real time, so we give ourselves a minute to get some feedback and results here. And we also are going to have a survey which is asking similar questions. The benefit of this poll is a chance for the audience that we have live to just get some feedback on what they think and get some real-time data. I personally am going. I guess I'm the executive director. I really don't have much choice, but I want to go anyway. I'm really all vaccinated, ready to get there. It'll be good to see the community and disconnect and just be in the same space with everybody. So as the years have gone by, I've grown quite fond of the NANOG community, and I'm looking forward to being in face-to-face with everyone. Okay, thank you all for that information. Let me switch to, let's give it another second. Still like I'm getting feedback. All right, give it another 10 seconds, then I'll close that poll and we'll jump on to the next one. Okay, so let's shift on to the next poll. So how many of you have taken the COVID-19 vaccine? Oops, sorry. Pressed the wrong button, so I'll give you guys a chance to reset that one. Now it looks like a lot of people have. It's funny, sometimes people were having various kind of side effects. When I took the first vaccine, I had vertigo for about a week. I got up, tried to get up out of the bed that morning, and literally it took me 5 minutes to get out of bed. My head was spinning so bad, I just kept hitting back there, but I'm fine now. Again, thank you all for kind of contributing to this. It really kind of helps us get an idea of what's going on within our community. As I mentioned before, we have other surveys which are going on. So if you look into the meeting pages, look down and find surveys. And there's other surveys that we'd love you to participate in to give feedback. We are community driven and we serve our community. So any feedback you give us is very helpful in helping us plan and prepare things as an organization. Okay, so let's move on to our next question, and that's regards to mentorship. So are you interested in becoming a mentor? You know, our mentorship program and our educational programs are both really designed to kind of formalize our educational process. From my particular perspective, NANOG has been educational, but primarily in a passive sense, where these new mentorship and educational programs are designed to make us more active and strategic in the way that we educate our community. And as we bring more people into our community to provide educational opportunities for them. Our focus is to get more people involved and engaged in the network operator community in terms of participating in NANOG, and even more so in terms of careers. Right now, our industry has an issue where there are more job openings than there are people to fill them. And we're hoping that NANOG could kind of help support that process of getting more people engaged and involved in looking at careers in network engineering. A lot of our outreach programs are targeted toward that. So any guidance and feedback you can give us in these areas are extremely helpful. Okay, so let's move on to the final question. Are you interested in being a mentee? It's been a pleasure for me to participate in both the mentorship and educational committees. We have some great people involved. They've kind of put forward some wonderful ideas. It's a very collaborative process, and all of them care about our community, and all of them are putting a lot of energy and effort into finding ways that we can improve the offerings that we have to our community. I'm very excited about the process, and I think that you will be as well. So we'll be making some big announcements in our November meeting for NANOG 83 about these programs, so stay tuned. Okay, seems like that's stabilized. So thank you all for helping out and giving us this feedback. So now let's open up for question and answer.
We'll start from the top. One of our first questions comes in asking, why do we limit the NOG access to our tools to just North American NOGs? Couldn't other regions also benefit from these tools?
Right now, we're kind of, it's like the walk before we can run. Right now, it's in beta phase. We're going to open up to people within the North American region. That doesn't mean we won't open up beyond that. I'm personally not opposed to that, but that would be kind of a board level decision. So we'll see how things run through our beta testing, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. And then we had several people commenting about the no presentation materials uploaded comment about maybe putting those in different categories, such as maybe abandoned or incomplete. And there was a follow-up question related to that, instead you declined. Has there been any further dive into the reasons why people don't upload their presentations? I think that's a good one for answering. Liz, do you know if we've reached out at all?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question. I do not believe that we on the program committee have reached out. I always thought it had led back to the idea of people submit talks based on these really kind of an aspirational idea where you come up with an idea that is really good and you submit it to NANOG and then you stop having time to attend to it that much. And that's really what leads to then no presentations get, no presentation material gets accepted. But it is kind of an interesting idea of, do we want to split out declined in several different ways so that it's clear to talks do get declined why that has happened. And that's something I think we could definitely talk about and think about if we want to move forward on.
I definitely agree. We also have a good question here. What are the opportunities, organization needs, requirements, and processes for someone who wants to volunteer for a role in NANOG?
I guess that would fall to me.
Yeah, it would be.
First of all, you can always reach out to me. My email address is emcnair@nanog.org, and I'm happy to kind of correspond with you directly. Ways that you can participate: one, that there are several committees. There's a program committee where we have nominations that take place in the early part of the year for getting people involved in that. We have our education and mentorship committees. Right now, those are formed, but as we go forward, there are going to be great opportunities for mentorship. There's going to be great opportunities for helping to develop curriculum, also to be able to present curriculum as well, and to present as a mentor, as I mentioned earlier. We have our outreach committee that. So as we kind of move forward to 2020 and 2021 are kind of building years where we're taking the board starting prior to the real 2020 in late 2019 to come up with a strategic plan. That strategic plan was kind of set on its ear by the pandemic. But you're going to especially see as we reach into 2022, there's going to be lots of opportunities for people to serve within our community. So stay tuned. We'll be bringing updates on our website and out through social media, et cetera, about some of the opportunities to serve our community.
And I'm going to read Tony's comment. It's not really a question, but more of a statement, which I think is a good one for everyone to hear. So Tony mentioned, when I was on the PC, sometimes it seemed that people didn't follow up with the presentation because they were looking to get accepted before developing the slides, but needed to understand that that's now not how the NANOG PC does things. I explained it like we needed to see more about the level of detail through slides, though the slides didn't need to be final, but could be refined later. And I think that's a really good point that Tony points out that I just wanted to read out loud for everybody. We need to see something to start analyzing and make a decision if it'll be accepted. So please keep that in mind when you're submitting talks. And also keep in mind that we're doing rolling acceptances and rolling submissions. So you can submit now for a couple nanogs away if you need more time. So if there's any other questions, please paste them into the chat in the Q&A tab. One other comment in here is that someone would love to see some of the topics that were abandoned. If there is enough interest, could there be an offer to anonymize the slides and offer up the talk presentation for someone else to present? That's an interesting question. I mean, that's certainly possible, I suppose.
Yeah, Kadisagi was going to say that we've seen this happen sometimes to where you're part of an organization and you volunteer somebody else, a member of your team, to actually present on your behalf, especially when this is teamwork. So we've seen that happen in the past and it's been successful. Not everybody's comfortable coming up on stage and presenting on something. So you should look at doing more of that. That would be our recommendation.
So I just wanted to say, I think this would be what I would actually really like to see is to bring down the level of stress that's associated with putting in a talk to NANOG. And the only way that we can do that is improve the transparency about the conversation that's happening within the program committee about the talk. Because by bringing down the level of stress, I mean, it shouldn't be just a black box. You throw your idea out and you get a yes or no back. There is generally, and there should be, even more going forward, real communication about if there is something that's stopping this thing from going forward, what is it exactly? And if it's something that can be changed, some pretty clear steps about what should be changed in that. I would love it if everybody felt like they can, have a great idea, make a ticket with it, have us consider it. And we are going to need to see some ideas, but, feel like it's going to be treated with the respect that it absolutely deserves and the attention that it deserves.
All right. Well, thank you all for the questions. And thank you for your presentation and time today, Edward, Elizabeth, and Ogie.